Thank you so much for staying with Daybreak. The conversation is still happening even during the break at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. We see a lot of your feedback. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We are talking about a myriad of issues. Before we get into the issues of governors, Senator Inturi, you have a complaint against the parliamentary system, or what were you talking about during the break? You're saying the oversight role is not there anymore.
Yeah, Obija have just been trying to tell the country to be very, very aware and be able to put their members of parliament into check. Because when you look at the role of the member of parliament, the oversight role and the legislative role of the member of parliament, in my view, is so compromised by the executive to the extent that they should not expect anything much from parliament. And I want to say this because if you look at the organs of oversight being parliament and their committees, the leadership of committees in parliament is picked from State House. So the leadership of committees of parliament is not answerable to the members and the public. They will do reports just like they are directed. Number two, Trevor, you also realize that, let me pick an example with the calendar of the National Assembly today, which starts either today or tomorrow. The calendar of Parliament, the National Assembly, is in such a way that until like today, members of Parliament are doing nothing within the day, or there is no plenary sittings. Yeah. Probably they will be doing their business in committees. But you find that serious bills are coming for debate between 7 and 9 in the night. That's the calendar. Yeah. And when you track that calendar, you find that some of them being behind bills, the Kenya Civil Aviation Bill, which is so crucial and so important to this country, yeah, won't be debated or decided at night, so that there is no quorum, so that those people that have been directed to sit there and defend that kind of legislation to ensure that it passes are the only people that are there. And you know, by the time we get to 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, members, yeah, of parliament are so tired that they will not pay attention to detail. So any mischievous legislation has an opportunity to pass, yeah, at night without check. So okay, I'm telling the public, when it gets to parliament and what we are supposed to be doing as members of parliament, because of our inability to resist the executive influence and the commanding role, the commanding force, the blackmail, the threats that the executive has on the members of parliament through investigations, through EACC, because, yeah, of CNDF, DCI, KRA, freezing on bank accounts. Kenyans, you cannot rely on members of parliament. In fact, the role of parliament, as I'm concerned today, is dead. There is nothing you can expect from us.
Otiende, what is your response to this? Because the legislature, has it been compromised by the executive?
Well, first of all, when Senator Linturi says he was elected because of it's him and not necessarily the party, the problem with that is that you cannot tell the percentage of the electorate that vote for you as an individual and those that vote for you on the party. Correct. If you want to test your individuality, then you go as an independent candidate. You do not go through a party. If you are independent, then you'd be right to say all the things you're saying, Senator Linturi. But as long as you go through the party, yeah, you cannot have that right. Secondly, the admission that, in fact, the confession that Senator Linturi now does and seeks to apologize to Kenyans is an admission he can only make for himself and his party. It's an admission that can only be made in respect of Jubilee. Before Jubilee, I think it was the Democratic Party, and before that, Kanu. You cannot ascribe that admission, say, to ANC. You cannot ascribe it to ODM. You cannot ascribe it to Chap Chap. Mm-hmm. Any of the parties that have not had the opportunity to lead, you cannot suppose on their behalf that when they have that opportunity, they will also impose leaders. So it is a confession and an admission and an apology that must only apply to Jubilee and those who have led, not to those of us who have not had the opportunity, because we do not know if it will happen differently. Yeah. But thirdly, and in respect of the National Assembly, what Senator Linturi says is not right. Under the Constitution of Kenya, unlike the previous constitution, Parliament determines its calendar. Previously, Parliament, it was at the discretion of the President, including when to dissolve. So now as parliamentarians, we've been given that opportunity. In exercise of that opportunity, we had earlier determined, and that was the tradition, I think, since 2013, that Parliament will sit on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The assumption being, which is right, that most parliamentarians travel to the constituency on Friday and come back on Monday. When, at the advent of COVID, we had to adjust. When we adjusted, we decided to have one sitting a week, and initially it was on a Wednesday. Once we realized that COVID is not going away, and there's a lot of parliamentary business to be done, we then adjusted it, removed Wednesday, and now we are sitting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Tuesdays, we were sitting only in the afternoon, and on Thursday we'd sit in the morning and the afternoon. But then we adjusted further when the business became quite a bit in the last session. And now we were sitting on Tuesday morning and afternoon, Thursday morning and afternoon. We have now realized that we have so much to do, and Kenyans expect so much of us, and yet we cannot sit consecutive days, because there must be a period of fumigation. If you sit today, you cannot sit the next day, because the health expert must come and fumigate. So what is the alternative? The alternative is for those sitting days to extend them. So now on Tuesday, we have sessions up to the evening session for the first time, I think, in the history of this country. And on Thursday, like today, we have a morning session, afternoon session, and evening session. You cannot accuse members of parliament of working too hard. I mean, because we are supposed to work hard. Even if we extend it to midnight, how can you say that is wrong? Okay. And in any event, we sat yesterday, and all members of parliament, I was personally present in parliament, in the National Assembly, when we endorsed that calendar. Anyone who had an issue with it had the option of saying, no, we do not want evening sittings. Not a single member of parliament opposed it. And therefore, no one can then come and complain that why did you extend to evening sittings? You cannot say it is the executive that imposed, and no one talked to anyone. No one spoke to me. Okay. In any event, and lastly, Trevor, as a member of parliament who is paid full-time to serve the people, and we have our three primary roles, you know, oversight, representation, and legislation. And when you sit 2 days in a week, how can it be so hard to sit only up to 9 p.m.? I confirm that I will be attending those evening sittings, including today. And I confirm that even during the day, there's important subject to discuss. But if you think you are not strong enough to stay up to 9 p.m., then you cannot blame anyone. You must ask your electorate why they elected you if you don't have the strength to stay and do one of your three primary roles, which is legislation.
Governor Mutua?
I'm not a legislator, so I'm just listening and smiling and concerned. I want to say, actually, to support Linturi when he says that he was elected as himself and also as part of Jubilee, because he went through primary. And I think the primaries, they had many people wanted that seat, and you emerged as a Jubilee candidate. So the people actually chose you in that primary. And so, in a way, you were elected by the people, as well as just because of your party. But also, it was interesting when you said that the father is behaving badly. I bet here you're talking about Uhuru Kenyatta, that the party leader is behaving badly, and hence a friction within the parliamentary circles. My good friend here has talked passionately about the role of parliament. But at the end of the day, let me refocus this conversation, talk about what Wananchi are seeing from out there. They're looking at parliament as a gluttonous parliament that keeps on adding salaries to itself, packages to themselves, etc., etc. They're looking at parliament as one whereby people are always fighting, insulting each other, etc., etc., and people are suffering on the ground. This morning I woke up and I'd gotten a video sent to me by somebody, and the video is of a lady. She's talking about being unemployed in this country. She's saying about being unemployed. The government has said, let us be self-employed. So she went to register. She found she needed to pay 3,000 shillings for a search of a business name. After she got the name, she was paid to pay another 7,000 shillings for further bureaucratic processes. And she's asking herself, I'm unemployed. I live at home with my mom. She has no money. Where am I going to get the money to just register a company and then let alone look for capital to start the business? Those are some of the things that we need to be thinking about in this country. So when wananchi down there is suffering, when this lady cannot even register a company to undertake work because there's no employment, and there's been a high rate of unemployment under the Jubilee government, which is led by both Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, because of the squabbling between the two and the problems that they are faced, then Kenyans are looking at it and saying that we are looking like we are a failed state.
Okay.
And that is the state of the nation as it is.
All right.
Trevor,
yes.
maybe just a quick one on what Senator Linturi was trying to address. And I would first head the discussion this way. On that subject, I believe it's on the effectiveness of Parliament or a member of Parliament. I think that's the discussion.
Yeah.
And Trevor, I disagreed earlier with some of the thoughts he had, but on that one, there are areas where I would agree with him. Because on the question of effectiveness of Parliament and members of Parliament, it has suffered a huge dent in the course of our politics. And in my analysis, in my thinking for the years that I've been there now for 2 terms, I think the problem is monetization of our politics. So you find that the requirement that for you to be able to go and propagate your ideas, for you to go and campaign, for you to go and see people, do everything is all hugely costly. And you find that then it has almost been made a lifestyle by members of Parliament and a way of doing our politics. So that you find indeed what you see when you're doing campaigns is that the biggest question to address is the budget. It's the amount of money, it's the funding.
Yeah.
And that goes on for the entire life of a parliamentarian, such that you find that then members of Parliament become highly susceptible to invitations to handouts, you know, to be paid to say things, to be given money and sponsored to go and cause mayhem, lead a certain political thought line, and you're funded.
Yeah.
All those things, they have made the effectiveness, and that's why I said I would head it as the effectiveness of Parliament and members of Parliament. That has made it a big issue.
Yeah.
And then to add, insult to injury, as it were, you add what Governor Dr. Mutua was saying, the character of members of Parliament. You find that, again, that makes it even worse, because when you're already suffering that identity crisis, then you have members of Parliament, as we discussed here last time, who are willing and ready to go on the public arena, climb a podium and start undressing each other, boxing and pulling each other's ties, strangling.
Yeah.
You remember there was even times when inside Parliament itself there have been cases of people stripping inside Parliament and even uttering obscenities inside Parliament. And so the whole question of the effectiveness of members of Parliament becomes a huge issue to address. And I believe unless there is a new approach, then by and large, Parliament will be cascading downwards to a very huge hollow house.
Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about now the issue around governors, and the counties are now going to receive 409 billion in a new sweet deal there. The IBEC met yesterday. Governor Mutua, I'll come to you on this particular issue. Kenyans have been up in arms.
Yes.
That somehow you governors have money for grants for MCA's vehicles, and you didn't have money to give to the doctors. I know you don't speak on behalf of the Council of Governors. They spoke actually, and they said that this money is available for all of you. Is this even fair?
Well, the issue is not that the money is available. I think it's an issue of the procedures and the budgeting. What the Council of Governors was asked was, is there money that has already been allocated towards the purchase of vehicles for MCAs? And we said yes, because that is their right, and they already had money allocated for loans to vehicles. And for the way it works is this way. Before you can get a loan as a member of county assembly or a member of parliament as it is, the government sets aside that money as a guarantee to the loan the bank is going to give you. So all we said is that, yes, there is money. Now, the conversion of the loan to a grant was done by the SRC. What Council of Governors said, yes, there is a loan, it is there, the budget is already set, and that's how the procedure is. So the conversion was by the Salary and Remuneration Commission. And I think it comes down to the fact that, going back to what Senator Omatangi, Dr. Omatangi, the Marodi Chief Whip of Jubilee, said, that there is this culture whereby people feel that members of parliament or people in executive have too much. It's like a luxury heaven. If you are a member of parliament, you have full medical insurance, you have the car grant, you have a good, sweet house deal, you can build your house, you know what I mean, at taxpayers' expense. So the feeling was, okay, if members of parliament are getting this, then why can't members of county assembly? So it's basically, we've already set up a system whereby if you're going to do it for this hand, then do it also for this hand.
Yeah.
And it will continue in this country.
But don't you see a problem when doctors wanted even just simple emergency allowances? At 4.5 billion, governors, you would have been able to facilitate that over giving car grants, which then now shifts the burden to the taxpayers. Anyway.
No, you couldn't. You couldn't, because the money set for the county assembly is set for the county assembly. You see, when the budget is divided, there is money divided where the money goes to the executive as governors and money goes to the county assemblies. So the county assemblies have decided, and it is set in their procedures, to set money for their grants and their cars and their houses and all that as part of their benefits. The governors have no say in that. That is already set in stone. Okay. So it's part of the money that is given to them. They use it the way they want, whether they want to build a new building, whether they want to go on holiday, whether they want to do whatever they do, under their own, because they are independent in a sense that we cannot control their funding. So when we are looking at the monies that we have as governors to fund doctors, we looked at the budget and we said we don't have any money within the executive to be able to do this. Okay. You know, some of us, as you know, went out of our way. We looked for money to pay allowances. I was the first person to say that we need to pay our frontline health workers, doctors, nurses, etc., allowances because they're in danger. And the SRC actually went against that. They wrote letters, said, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, you know what I mean? But I was able to push it, and the doctors now have the allowances, etc., etc. Okay.
Dr. Tiende, but this creates a wrong perception, right? The explanation is fairly reasonable that this was budgeted for anyway, but from the public, there's an uproar that when things that affect the public are on the forefront, it's easy to shoot down, but when it's about the legislators, somehow there's a wiggle room.
That's Kenya for you.
Let me start from a more fundamental issue, which was addressed by my colleagues in respect of the parliament. It is not just parliament. So when Governor Mutua sits here and says that the Kenyans are wondering about parliament, the problem is the dearth of integrity in office, elective and appointive. And it's from the MCA, the county assembly, to the National Assembly, to the Senate, to the governors, and to even higher. And so it's a more fundamental problem. And just to address that little bit, part of what my own perception is, as long as you retain a presidential system, in a presidential system, separation of powers is almost a mirage. Because almost always, although it's not required, the person who wins the presidency is almost always the person, at least in this country, who has a majority in parliament. And it therefore, in the context of the party, gives that person and that party an undue leverage over parliament. It is my expectation that if we come to a system which tones down that pure presidentialism, like now the BBI proposes, it tones it down because you have a prime minister who will now sit in parliament, and you also have the leader of opposition in that very parliament. It probably will make parliament a little more vibrant than it is. Coming to the question of SRC, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is supposed to be completely independent. In my view, the timing of their decision and the mode in which they made it reeks of inconsistency and lack of independence, and that is the truth. Okay, it's not about whether it's right or wrong, but just the question of timing. Because if you talk about timing, they have a lot that has been lying at their plate. First, you'll remember that even the grants that are given to members of parliament was actually opposed by the SRC at the time, which now they are citing as an example. The question of housing allowance, I think, for members of parliament has been with them for like 4 years since the previous session of parliament, and they've not dealt with it. There are other issues that relate to it. The question of healthcare workers has been with them. You know, the problem in this country first is that this Jubilee administration, when it first came in, devolved the entire healthcare. But that is not what the Constitution requires. It's not what is in the Constitution. What's in the Constitution, what is devolved is primary healthcare and other such facilities like running ambulances and all. But in the first summit, they chose to devolve the entire healthcare, and that has been the problem. Now, that problem has cascaded to be a real problem for doctors and other healthcare workers. The best that the SRC could ameliorate that situation is to find a way of standardizing and improving the standards of healthcare workers.
Okay.
The inconsistency comes when Governor Mutua, and I remember this very well, found funds to kind of give some COVID relief to healthcare workers in Machakos. The SRC was the first to write to Machakos and tell them, you can't do that. But why would they write that? If Machakos is able to find funds to ameliorate, why would you oppose it? When now their main argument is that the employers have confirmed they have the funds. But that also goes to disabuse and make false what my brother, who I've just praised, has said. You know, if you could fund funds, to ameliorate the situation, why could other governors not find the funds? You know? But the second issue is this. Now, as a matter of principle, as a matter of principle, there's nothing wrong with what the SRC has done, okay? For two reasons. First, there is no additional budget as per their explanation. It is budget that was already provided for, except that it was provided to be in the context of a loan, okay? But now it's being converted into a grant. And I am the first to agree that the roles that the MCAs play at the county level mirror the roles we play at the national level. If we can get car grants, I heard somebody say 7 million, but to the best of my knowledge, it's 5.
It's 5,
Yes, it's not 7, it's 5. If we can get car grants of 5 million, I see no reason why MCAs cannot get car grants.
Okay.
But secondly, is to emphasize that in most of those counties, in almost all those cases, it's a conversion. Because I think over 90% of MCAs already took the loan anyway. So it's to convert the loan into a grant. But lastly is this. And I've had people who criticize, especially my brothers from Linturi's side, criticize the whole idea of giving the grant. The whole grant cost 4.5 billion. The deputy president who chairs IBEC just added the counties another 50 billion. So that the IBEC alone has given the counties the ability to use less than 10% of what they've been added, even if it was an additional allocation. You see that point? So that even if the counties were to complain, now they'll say, but we've just gotten another 50 billion. 4.5 billion is about 8%, you know? So you cannot complain and criticize it while praising the additional allocations.
Senator, do you think this was just a sweetener for the MCAs to pass the BBI? Simply put, because the timing is suspect, we have to admit.
I think that is the untold truth. And if anybody has seen the letter that came from, addressed the governors from SRC, they clearly stated that this is just a conversion. There will be no extra budget on the same. But you know, the most important thing for me to be persuaded to believe that it wasn't a bribe, though I believe and agree that members of the county assemblies must be facilitated, including getting a car grant. That one is not, I have no doubt in my mind. And I maintain a position that I am always ended to justify that they were bribed in this particular matter to pass BBI, because one of the reasons, some of the reasons being what Otiende as advanced
Yeah.
because of the timing, the speed, and demonstrate that this institution is no longer independent. And if it was not a bribe, I would have expected the SRC to further put it in the letter that this is now a grant, is a benefit that will always accrue to every assembly
Yeah.
once 5 years. But you see now, in that particular letter,
Yeah.
it's like this grant only applies to the current county assemblies. When elections are done in 2022, they will not be entitled to a grant.
Yeah.
And that is something that really they need to clarify because of the role that they do or the work that they do to this country, they deserve. And let me tell you,
Yeah.
also is something that we mentioned. The 15 billion that you are saying under the leadership of the DP is going to counter. I don't think it's the DP that is handling the 15 billion. When we understand off on the revenue formula,
Yeah.
the promise was made by the president, if I'm not wrong, on my tongue, that the 15 billion will be handed in this financial year to increase the allocation to around by 15 billion.
Yeah.
So that, and that's how we were able to manage and compromise on the formula. But I want to tell the country
Yeah.
and to promise today, as I am sitting here, the probability of this happening, or the counties getting the 4 or 9 billion this year, I don't see it happening.
Why not?
Unless there is a miracle. Number one, unless if what I am also reading in the papers is something to go by,
Yeah.
that there is a moratorium on the payment of debt, and probably now we have collected much revenue. That is what they only can save the situation. Because in our constitution,
Yeah.
the first change on our revenue is the provision for public debt. You know, the country is so indebted,
Yeah.
today I think it's 9 billion, or I can't remember the figures, such that if you are to provide in our budget for the immediate debt that is payable,
Yeah.
that would have shrunk our revenues that are supposed to be shareable, because you can never share any
you don't
revenue
have.
within the governments
Yeah.
unless you are first of all set aside money to pay for public debt.
Okay.
So with the increase and the ballooning public debt, the probability in my view, and the shrunk economy,
Yeah.
unless we have also a way of trying to get a stimulus, some bit of good money to stimulate
Yeah.
this economy, and hoping that COVID is out of our country or out of space,
Yeah.
then that is why we can be so expectant
Okay.
that there will be any serious change.
All right, Senator Watangi.
Yes, Trevor, just a quick one, because my colleagues have spoken a lot about the grant. I don't want to add much to it because they've put in most of the points. But I think it's important that at first we also inform the public correctly. How did this idea of grants first come? And I remember when I first went to Parliament in 2013, there was this big debate. Should members of Parliament be given cars, just like every other public officer? And those vehicles are funded by government. And a study then was undertaken and costing, and a report was tabled in Parliament that then seemed to show that it will be more costly for government to acquire vehicles, give them to officers of Parliament, that's the members of Parliament, and then continue to maintain and fuel those vehicles. The cost was almost tripling of what that is.
Yeah.
And so it was seen to be more prudent that if you buy the vehicle, give it to the person, and then let them maintain it and let them fuel it, because they're the ones who know how to use the vehicle and how they're going. It looked like a cost-saving measure. If you look at how government works, most of the officers of government, all the way down to DCs and how have got vehicles that are given to them. And so I think maybe that approach then seemed to have been saving money. But there are fundamental questions to be asked, Trevor. I've been sitting in the Public Accounts Committee for quite a while. And what are the amounts that were being given to MCAs either as loans now converted to grants, even when that money was being given as a loan.
Yeah.
I want to tell you for sure that that money was not being paid. And I sat in Public Accounts Committee, actually even with Linturi. And if you perused the records of county assemblies and county government, indeed those loans, and especially the ones that were taken between 2013 and 2017, were never paid. And people then were able to go have vehicles purchased for them. And they still had the logbooks for those vehicles in their names and kept the logbooks in their houses. And accountability then was never followed. So they went away with the vehicles still in their names. So probably if the rationale was to see how do you provide transport for them, then probably going that grant way would have been right. The only question is the question of that timing. But that question has been answered by Dr. Alfred Mutua, and I would want to probably then rope in with what Senator Linturi was asking. Is it possible for government to then truly send the 400 billion to county governments? And I think it is possible.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you why. Because if with the budget that we have and the revenue that we have collected, government reprioritizes, and by doing that, they would be doing a few things. One, ensure that unnecessary expenditure is not incurred at all. In terms of expensive travel, in terms of other expenses that you find that the allowances and necessary meetings and so on, that can be scaled down. Number two, deal with this big question of corruption, whereby you find that half of that money collected is then again taken away by people. Okay. If that is done, you will find that this 400 billion can be found. Remember, this money is never disbursed as a whole amount, as a lump sum. It goes in disbursements. Okay. And so what is collected this quarter definitely can be able to go to meet those county government expenses. Okay. My last point would be this. If, following on what Dr. Alfred Mutua was saying, when we've devolved functions, have we fully devolved them? That would be a big question. Okay. And so if you find that certain funds are still retained at national government level, and then to carry out functions that have been devolved to county governments, for example, like in agriculture, like in health and other devolved functions, retaining most of those funds at national government level does not necessarily mean that those funds would be imprudently used when they go to county governments. The question would be, once you disburse those funds, is there proper oversight for those funds to go? And so taking the 400 billion would only mean taking from the top what has already been retained and is being spent there, and then bringing it down. Because if you ask, out of the entire budget, how much does national government retain for itself to spend? Okay. Is it in excess of that 400 billion? The answer is a big yes. Yes. And so it's not a question of how much is the government going to collect or whatever. Then you have the possibility of 400 billion. Even if they didn't collect a penny more than they did last year, they can still send the 400 billion. It is just to say health is a devolved function. So what you do is send funds that are for health to the county government. And then follow it with oversight. Okay.
I want us to talk about political
intolerance. Just there's one little bit that disturbs me that I think needs clarification. Maybe from my brother Linturi, because we have read that just yesterday, the Deputy President, who's the chair of IBEC, that IBEC increased the allocation to counties by 53 billion. We have also read that SRC approved the grants, which comes to 4.5 billion, but which, according to both the governors and them, is not an additional allocation. It is allocation within what was already provided for them. But Senator Linturi says, and a lot of my colleagues who are in UDA say that that is a mirage. They don't see that coming. The same argument they've used against BBI, that if the government cannot provide 15%, then how can you talk about 35%? But what does that mean then? Are we saying that the Deputy President sat and discussed and communicated what is false, what will not be achieved? If 4.5 billion cannot be achieved, then how will the 53 billion be achieved? Are we saying that the Deputy President lied to the nation? Maybe Senator Linturi
I
might
told
help us.
you, and this is I reminded him,
Yeah.
that the deal in the passage of the revenue formula was there will be an extra 50 billion in the 2021-2022 financial year. That was a commitment from His Excellency the President and the Treasury. So I think what is happening here, in just trying to firm up or put the agreements that were entered into in place and in order. So unless if Otiende does not really want to agree with me to the extent that before we can even share this money, we must provide for public debt. And that will take quite a big chunk of our revenues. And what we only be able to share is what will remain after that provision. And because we have a gentleman in this show this morning who can be able to even shed more light and give us guidance on whether what we are talking about is the actual position on the ground, because Otiende has been trying to be very academic in trying to explain even why Parliament is sitting up to 9. And you know, this is very basic, and we don't want such explanations about as what I was saying is the capacity of the member of Parliament to sit up to 9. Can we allow me, please,
Yes.
with your indulgence, ask Governor Mutua to tell us, even as at today is on 10th, or no, 11th of February, the last time they received the disbursements from Treasury. You will be surprised this particular year, the money for January or December may not have even been disbursed to them.
Is that true, Dr. Mutua?
Let me answer, let me play the tact that Dr. Matangi played by first going around in circles.
By your own admission.
Which one was that?
By your own admission, you want to go around in circles.
What was that about, Dr.
When he was asked a simple yes/no question. You know, let me say a few things very quickly. Senator Matangi talked about, and I'll take you back slightly, about monetization of politics, whereby members are bribed. And this is something that wananchi need to know. There are times when you see a leader followed by many members of parliament or senate to a function, to a burial, at times to public baraza. It's not because they are attached to him or her ideologically. It's because after the end of the day they are given 200,000 shillings for their own personal use, for their mpangwa kandos and all those things that they do. And that wananchi need to realize is something that is happening. And it is what Matangi was talking about. And it is very, very sad that actually our members of parliament, some of them, not all of them, are actually bribed to follow people. And they follow them, and if they seem not to be following, the bribe is cut. So in other words, our politics has been bought by the highest bidder, which is also a form of corruption. So the parliament as it is right now doesn't have a lot of respect from wananchi because of that. Number two, they also talked about ideology of parties, whereby we were moving towards where, you know, in the US, you know, the Liberal Party is for social welfare, while the Republican Party is for business, etc., etc. So here, it is all about individuals, and we need to move our country to a place where people vote according to ideology. What will this party do? Not because of an individual. Individuals come and go, but our country remains. And that's why a party like mine, Mandeleo Chap Chap, is pushing towards that. Number three, I would like to correct my friend here when he says that the health function was not devolved. I looked at the Constitution, and if you look at the national government, in the Constitution, it's been given the mandate of health policy, full stop, nothing more. Health policy. And tunajua kizungu. The county governments have been given county health services, including, and this is done for the avoidance of doubt, county health facilities. That means all facilities. Facilities come with staff, including doctors. Ambulances, primary health, licensing, all those things have been given to the county governments. Therefore, when Senator Matangi talks about, but has the money followed? Why is the national government undertaking roles that have been devolved to the county government? It's because of the feeling or the thought that they have not been devolved. The same thing with agriculture and others. So if we believe in devolution, and I said if you try to remove devolution in this country, you'll cause a revolution because of the changes that have occurred, despite the challenges that we face, you'll have a problem. And second to last is the question of is money available? as I said, for payment of this, that money had been set aside. I mean, a county assembly can decide we don't want this money for grants, let's use this money for something else. They can ask for, you know, a supplementary budget and change, but it's already in the budget.
Yeah.
So what governors were saying, it is there. When it comes to public debt, we must realize that if you look, I've been in government for a long time. Before you allocate any monies, including the 50 billion, you've already taken care of public debt. There is a payment schedule of public debt.
Yeah.
What we need to be talking about is let us not accrue any more public debt.
Yeah.
Any more public debt.
You still haven't answered the question by Linturi, though. Has the money been
I
disbursed?
thought you'd forgotten.
No.
No, no, there's been a challenge, and the governors have come out strongly about monies being disbursed.
Yeah.
The challenge has been that Treasury is not able to collect enough money on time to disburse. This has been happening for the last 3 years. As we sit right now, Machakos, I can speak for Machakos, has been paying doctors, has been paying our members of staff by borrowing from banks. And then when the money comes in, we get these short-term loans. When the money comes in, then we are able to offset the loans. So there is a delay in the payments, and we are behind with about 3 months, 3 to 4 months, which is the reality on the ground.
Okay.
Because the money is being delayed in coming in. They're talking about COVID, etc., etc. But it's also about priority.
Yeah.
I just think that when it comes to giving money to counties, there isn't that feeling that it is important. There's always money for the national government to pay its military, to do its work and others. But when it comes to paying over, ni kama sisi ni bibi wa kambo, tumewekwa kando, something to be taken for granted. And it is not that the money is not there, it's a matter of priority.
Okay.
So what we need to shift is to make sure the priority is there, even as the BBI tries to increase it to 35%, so we can get our money and deliver to our people.
Okay. Wamatangi, is it that the issue is the priorities, or are we just simply broke?
No, because speaking about the problem per se, you know, away from politics, because, you know, this question of broke and no money and whatever has been largely politicized. But we can talk about it also. But the first thing that I think to what Governor Dr. Mutua was saying is this, that besides the delay in disbursements, I think also the bureaucracy within the Treasury when they're releasing funds to county governments, that would need to be dealt with. Trevor, there is a monster called IFMIS system. And the procedures there, and I think most of us here are aware about it. And you find that before a county government is able to access funds, there is a whole litany of documentation, processes, offices to go to, and exchange of notes and OKs and NOs before that money is found. Such that if you are to be dealing with an emergency situation that is above the amount that governors are allowed by law to retain, then it becomes a huge problem. And so I think once that is, if that will be dealt with alongside then the question of prioritization, I think would be going a long way. I would still stick to my first assertion that I believe that the money that is in the hands of the national government at any one time, if it is released according to the functions that have been devolved to county governments, with the full realization and respect for the law, that resources follow functions, and that they should not hold any, then you would not have much of those problems. Are we broke or not? You know, I believe, Trevor, that if you look at the reports of every government the whole world over right now after COVID-19, there is no government that other than China, because after COVID, which started in their country, then they quickly turned it on its head, and they became the biggest beneficiaries by exporting masks and what have you all over the whole world. Probably other than China, but most of governments around the world are complaining, and it's even there for our BIs to see. You've seen hotels have closed down, small restaurants have closed down, we've got lockdown, we've got curfew. So what we just expect is that there will be a slowdown, and it's been a global slowdown. So it would not, it's not miraculous. It's not an invention that you talk about a cash crunch right now. But I think what we'll be looking at is are we able to collect to survive barely to the level of service delivery?
Okay.
I think taking away all the other expenses,
Yeah.
big expenditures,
Yeah.
we can still be able to survive.
Okay.
I don't know why the members, my colleagues are straining to just put things right way. Because, you know, it's, I can see, you know, when you are struggling not to offend, to make somebody happy, you always have these problems. Governor, with a lot of respect, you know, he's just saying, for eight members for the last 4 months, he has not received finances. And he expects them to run our whole government. He expects them to pay for nurses, doctors, and any other services. What does that imply?
Yeah.
There's no money. Money Matangi.
Yes.
We have staff as senators. When were we or was our staff paid by Parliament? There's no money. When you call just any other contractor out there or and deliver a supplier to government, ask him, when were you paid last? My friend, let us not try to hide our hands in the sand. Let us tell the public that things are not correct and things are bad. And they cannot only be blamed or try to make things appear so sweet or so nice. The only test, the only very simple test to demonstrate whether there is money in circulation or in the economy is just an evaluation of yourself. How are you doing last year, 3 years, 4, 5 years ago, and how you are doing now? Everybody now is poor, is broke, nobody has money. So there is no money or Matangi, however much.
Let me support
maybe.
And let me finish. Let me conclude.
Yes.
Governor, with a lot of respect, let me tell you, I just want also to just bring it into right perspective, because he was trying to paint a picture whereby those people that are friendly, that have a meeting of minds in terms of how people must associate or relate with one another are paid money. I have been an associate of President Uhuru Kenyatta because I was a member of Parliament and a Kanu ticket for the longest. And that's how we met William Samoei Ruto, because we are in the same party. And I can tell you, William Ruto does not give us or anybody money. Some of us are so proud. Even in the last elections, we told them we want to buy shares in this committee, in this party, right? So some things are so basic. How you relate, relationships, how you feel when one is bereaved, how you interact, whether you have a cup of tea together or not. That is the board that you can, there are some things that you cannot buy by use of money. And simple mathematics, the last time we had a meeting, we have 139 members of Parliament. If we was to give anybody 200,000 shillings, as you are saying, you would have spent 27.8 million.
How much?
No, 27.8 million to
So
pay
that
for
is
members of Parliament to sit there. Nobody can afford that money. When government calls, or the operatives in government call people in Sagana or any other small meeting, they are paying 5,000 or 10,000 because even government cannot afford. I don't think William Ruto has such money.
Okay.
And you know, you continue finding this ghost because people think that money is given, but there is no single money. But people have decided that they believe in him, and together they think can make some bit of change.
Maybe just
hold on, Governor.
Maybe he's the one not getting the money.
Hold on. Let me help my friend Linturi.
Yeah.
Because I am with colleagues who confess that they get money.
Yes.
If you don't get money, speak for yourself. But I'm with colleagues who confess that they get money in that formation. And also, you can't say that you don't think William Ruto has that kind of money. I thought we all agreed. I mean, a man who has, how many choppers? Is it 12? How many, I don't know, hotels? How many? Seriously? Anyway.
Are you saying he's richer than Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta?
Let me focus on the part I agree with. I agree with the first part. When you say there's no money. And it's not because, I mean, we have challenges, financial challenges. And it's not just at the counties. And I agree with you. Even in Parliament, we have those challenges. Even some of our staff members have not been paid. Okay? Even the CDF allocation for the other year
has not come.
We, for this whole year, and we are now, we've done, we've done over 6 months. We are now on 8 months. We've only gotten less than 10% of what we should have gotten. So there's a financial challenge across the board. And why is that challenge on? That challenge is on because there has been a problem, and that is the truth. These last 3 years, and I think the 5 years before that, there's a problem of collection, there's a problem of borrowing, there's a problem of prioritization of projects, and there's a problem of corruption. Whose problem is that, Senator Linturi? It is the Jubilee administration that you belong to. What you've just told Kenyans is why they should regret having brought in Jubilee in the first place, from 2013 to now. In other words, what are you telling Kenyans? That moving forward, anyone who was associated at the topmost level with Jubilee should not be voted again. And who is that person? The deputy president, because the president is not seeking re-election. So you've just given Kenyans the reason why not to vote the deputy president. Let me continue. Let me now come to what Governor Mutua was saying. Hold on, you'll have your turn. Now, Governor Mutua, and we will continue this discussion. And you remember I wrote the Constitution, so we can have this discussion beyond this. Let us talk about health. The schedules to the Constitution at number 3, number 23, gives the national government the responsibility for national referral hospitals. And then at number 28, it then gives us the mandate of health policy. In the same way which at number 15, it gives it the role for education policy. And then when it comes to counties, at number 9, it restricts it to pre-primary education, village polytechnics, and homecraft. Because the principle there is that any function that is not directly devolved to the counties is a function retained by the national government. The thinking in this entire thing was, and that's why when it comes to counties at number 2, it says health services, including in particular, those are the words we left out, in particular, county health facilities, which were contemplated to be those ones which were run by the former municipalities, you know, the dispensaries, or specific hospitals, like in Nairobi, they used to run both Mbagathi and Pumwani, okay? And then ambulances and primary health care. The thinking was very simple. National government would retain the health policy, and that health policy will make every county was to have one national referral hospital and sub-referral hospitals. Okay. The counties were supposed to run only those which the municipalities were running. They were not supposed to take over the entire health care and all the doctors and everything. So, but we can have that discussion, moving forward.
He's wrong.
I think arguing with someone who wrote the Constitution is a bit difficult.
No, but you see, just because you wrote the Constitution, he didn't write it alone. There were many other people. And the reality is that in the same schedule he's talking about, it says National Referral Hospital. And actually, it's basically Kenyatta and Moi, those two. The reality has been, even from the way the Constitution was written, the rest of healthcare was devolved, which is basically what happens in the rest of the world. We copy this Constitution, is a copy of what happens in the US, whereby we find in the American system, the healthcare is devolved. It's basically managed by the states, etc., etc. But let's the question we have to ask ourselves about the cash crunch. And the cash crunch and his thrown aspersions that Jubilee government has failed. I've worked for my Kibaki government. When I toured Mount Kenya, they were crying for the Kibaki era because they felt that money was in circulation. We have to agree that in this country, the Jubilee government has had its challenges, even before COVID, in terms of its fiscal policies, in terms of how things are done, but it has because there's been an infighting and a lot of corruption that has gone on. And that corruption has really not been very good for us as a country. And if you ask any child in this country who is the biggest thief in this country, they'll tell you. Who do they think steals? They'll tell you. And they'll mention names of people who are actually at the very high echelons of Jubilee. That is not a very good image of the government. So the suffering we're suffering today is also because as a government, its fiscal policy, its economic policies have really not been in tune to what Wananchi want, and that calls for change. All right.
Wamatangi, you wanted to respond to the issue of Jubilee.
No, not the issue of Jubilee first. I wanted to probably reaffirm what most of us have said. It's only that I think at that time Senator Linturi was very passionate about making his point, but I think we've all said the same thing, one way or the other, including himself. on the question of no money, because it's self-evident, and that's the first point that I made, that there is no one anywhere in this world at this time who is claiming to be riding on an upward curve of income economically. There's no government has money, not even businesses, not even yourself, Trevor. I mean, not even this house of media. I mean, it's global. And so we have to face the reality with the right approach, knowing that then what do you do when you don't have money? You become prudent. You spend less. Yeah. You prioritize. That's what we've just simply been saying. And so what we need to do onwards as government is to look at, and I'm saying as government, not because I was yesterday, given that position of majority, but even Linturi here, as an elected member of parliament, on the ruling party's ticket, he is government. Yeah. And Otiende Amolo is government, as it is right now, with our new dispensation. So once we've taken that responsibility, then we carry that responsibility responsibly by making sure that we have told the people that this is and this is what we'll do, and you have trusted us. Okay. And so we should live up to that trust. Secondly, and lastly is on this question of Jubilee. And remember, I addressed this at length last time, and I will address it very quickly right now, that personally I am under no illusion that we collectively, all of us, stood there on the podium in Kasarani, and we showed people red, beautiful, bright papers that we called a manifesto in 2013 and in 2017, all of us collectively. And we said, these are the things we are going to do. And if you give us this opportunity, we are going to think out and give you solutions and make a better life for you. Yeah. And all those things are clear. And that's, I don't want to be repetitive, but I want to remind Linturi, I want to remind all the other people that we were elected with, all of us, that we cannot run away from that responsibility at this time. We will have to answer in 2022 to the people of the Republic of Kenya. We told you and gave you this mandate. Okay. And you told us you'll do this and this. What have you done? All right. And there are not ways about it. Okay. So as a person, as a senator for Kiambu, what I am ready to do is everything in my power as a legislator to make sure that as much as I can, and maybe helping them together, that we are going to deliver. And once we deliver, then we can say to the people, fine, here we are, take back your scorecard, give us a 10 or 20 or 50 or an 80, and then when we come back to you, judge us based on that record and merit. Okay. That's how leadership should look like.
I want us to go through two other issues that are coming up in the newspaper really quick. Police respond to Ruto allies' security concerns because we're running out of time. Police say DP's security is intact after Tanga leaders ask Inspector General to probe alleged absence of officers, plot for chaos in rallies, and withdrawal of MPs' bodyguards. Senator Linturi, has any of your bodyguards been withdrawn or any of your colleagues?
I even don't need them. Yeah.
You don't need them.
My protector is God and the people. And I can assure you, when you hear people talk about this, it is the truth. And it's in the public domain. Many members of parliament have gone to seek redress in court, right, for their security officers to be for their security to be taken back to them once they've been procedurally or withdrawn. So there is when we talk about that big hand of the executive trying to misuse the various agencies of government to deal with people perceived to be errant. That is what we exactly mean. I can't even imagine a situation whereby a person senior to the level of a deputy president in this country can go to Mombasa in very many meetings and there is no presence of police officers in those particular meetings. But I want to tell you the truth is this, because even as we sit now, you know, like we've been in politics for quite some time. Yeah. And we know how certain shenanigans want to paint a group to a certain, or put them into a corner where they must always be reactive. And this is what is happening because there's a scheme in government to ensure that they always portray that type of that wing in Jubilee Party, that is not agreeable to certain positions that are being taken to show them as violent. That is why you find them, they will allow you to go without security. They will not attend your meetings. They will sponsor chaos so that it's blamed on you. Even as we sit here, you know Machakos, there is a by-election going on. And the Machakos by-election is going on. There is a senior officer, and one of the NASA principals, right, that have sent for printing of UNDA T-shirts and material in somewhere in town, so that they are taken to him to use to enlist terror. And I'm telling you, you are listening. If you want to challenge me, ask him, I'll tell you where and who is printing the material.
Who is
printing? The good thing is
that
who is this?
Because of the mass. Listen,
No, you can be scaring the people. You know, you're scaring the people. You need to be very specific.
This is in Machakos.
Yeah, because I'm from Machakos, I'd like to know.
Yeah,
who is this?
I am going to give it to the necessary agencies.
Oh,
because
including
this
myself,
message
so
I
we
got
can hear.
it last night.
Yes.
I was called and I was told, I was given the details.
Would like
I will
to know.
share. So I am not a person that doesn't say things that I cannot substantiate. But I'm just trying to demonstrate by use of this incident where people have gotten so desperate to the extent that they would want to appear in a meeting dressed in certain colors so that it is taken to be the other team. So what we're asking is the police must be depoliticized. The police has a duty to serve and give security to everyone, to every Kenyan. So because the police are brothers and sisters, and we know, by their standing was they only take Hondas. Please, don't also take illegal Hondas. If you are told to go and kill Linturi for not being reasoned at all or abduct him, right? Please don't.
But as it stands, has any of your security been withdrawn or any of your colleagues?
Many of, a number of our colleagues' security.
Mention.
Yes.
Mention in particular.
Like, let me tell you, for example, Alice Waume to go and to court to have his security
So it means it's not
by the government.
Because the court ordered.
Yes, I'm telling you. But do we require to go to court for the court to honor the statement of security to members of parliament?
Maybe
That's
the question
is this.
Let me jump in. Maybe the question is: do we actually, as VIPs, as elected members, as governors, do we really require security? You know, and as much security as we get. You know, we have to ask ourselves: does that mean that our country is so insecure that we recuse, or do we think that we need security because sisi ni wakubwa? Sisi ni wadosi, sitting back left. You know, there's that question where people feel like your security is a must. You know what I mean? And at times you find our preachers, for example, our priests, do they have security? Other members of society work in the NGOs, do they have security? So what entitles us that once you become a mheshimiwa, a member of parliament, member of county assembly, all of a sudden you need somebody here with a gun following you around? Does it mean that Kenya is that insecure? You know, there's something that we need, it's a debate that we need to have in terms of provision of security. You should get security if you are insecure, you know, and it's something that I believe in myself, and I've been talking about it for a long, long time. We get security at times because of the positions we take, we are in danger. But majority of members of county assembly, even members of parliament, hata wananchi wengine hawajui. You know, you'll get somebody coming, going in public, ananunua nyama. Nobody knows that's an MP or an MCA. You know, so why do they need security? You know, traveling across the country.
But Dr. Tiende, you've been an ombudsman before. You're the ombudsman emeritus. Is it fair to withdraw security from certain legislators?
Let me say this, and I will answer the question Governor Mutua asks. The provision of security to certain persons at a certain level, not necessarily all, is important. And for members of parliament, it is important to provide at least one security person. I personally have only one, and I only invite him where it's necessary. Most times I do not, because I do not feel insecure, but there are times you feel insecure. So why do we need them? We need them because, look, what is the cost of providing one security person for a member of parliament? It is minimal because they're already employed in the force. But if you lose a member of parliament on insecure grounds, what is the cost of the by-election, for example? So sometimes you need to protect a person, not even for their own protection, but in terms of overall what it costs. If you were not to provide security to the president, and unfortunately something were to happen, what is the cost to the country? It is cheaper to make sure the president is secure or the Chief Justice or people like that,
Yeah.
as indeed with a member of parliament. Members of parliament ought to be provided with security, and it should not be a favor. That much I agree with.
Okay.
It should not be a favor, and it should not depend on where you are at any one time.
Yeah.
We ourselves in ODM suffered this when our security personnel were withdrawn and we had to go to court and all that. But let me just say that as we speak today, I am not aware of any member, at least of the National Assembly, whose security has been withdrawn.
Okay.
If there is, I would like to know. Secondly,
right.
when it comes to the Deputy President, I'm surprised Senator Linturi would be alluding to that, because I think the Deputy President is one of the most protected persons. I didn't know until I saw the scene in Kisii, where my brothers were sparring. You know, that's what we will call it for now. We will and within seconds, there were all these military, you know, people in military fatigue, menacing looking there, and they had only come to protect the Deputy President. They didn't care about anybody else. He was well secure. And therefore, I believe he's quite secure despite. The question of the police attending meetings, that is a different question. You know, we are in COVID times, and there are even COVID regulations which we ourselves passed in Parliament. Therefore, when you are going to campaign, and you've chosen to have 10,000 people, you can't expect the police to come and guard those 10,000 when you should not even have them. The police's business is to protect you, not to protect that political meeting. But if it was to go somewhere as the Deputy President, that's different. And lastly, I think my brother Linturi is engaging in fear-mongering. You cannot come and say that you are aware there's a NASA leader who's ordered T-shirts of UDA to cause chaos, and you just go scot-free on national television like that. You must substantiate, so that if you lie, if you mention someone's name, they are entitled to refute it or to sue you if it is false. Because what I know is that the only confessions we've had in recent times is of your Jubilee operatives, who by their own admission said they were buying ODM T-shirts and burning cars along Ngong Road. It is not in the DNA of NASA to operate that way. Therefore, I would be heavily surprised.
What is the DNA of NASA? I think you know, it would have been important that Dr.
NASA is synonymous to chaos and violence. So I don't know whether he's being honest.
Sansa is synonymous to violence and you are obligated to substantiate what you're saying.
Yeah, you know.
Are you going to report?
Are you going to report it? Because I will. Can I say this on national television? I will hold you personally responsible for scaring my people of Machakos. Because what you told my people of Machakos is that there is somebody organizing chaos in Machakos. So far, the campaigns have been very peaceful. We are very peaceful in Machakos. I've been very peaceful. Unaongea, unaenda. So what you are saying is not something that we see in Machakos during political rallies or political campaigns. So I'll hold you personally responsible for us to be able to follow this up substantially. We want to find out. Yeah, you can come to Machakos. We'll welcome you very well. Utaongea, watasikiza, utaenda. Tutarudi na maisha yetu ya raha na maisha yetu ya maendeleo. But for you to come out and say there's somebody organizing the chaos and you're not able to tell us here, I can only say that one, either you are lying to the public of Kenya, or you are manufacturing things for political expediency. So I will just want to confirm that I will follow you up, and I will announce to the public whether you've actually reported and whether investigations have followed up. And I want to assure the people of Machakos, you have nothing to fear. Everything is well, and we are going to continue our campaigns without any fear being brought upon by people who are not able to substantiate their claims.
Senator, when you are given intelligence, Mutua, the best thing is for you to take that information and be able to be on the lookout and check. And if you got me correctly, I sent their senior leaders who have ordered for T-shirts and other campaign material, right, that may be used by their team to demonstrate or to display the other party as violent or whatever. So I am going to make a report on this thing.
Thank you.
But what I want to tell you is that I don't say or bring out issues to cause fear, because I am very civilized. So I am, and unfortunately I hope they are not listening, because they may stop.
But you still have to report either way.
I would have to do it. I will have to do it because I am telling you, I got this information last night past 10. And there's a call that I got from a citizen, right? That an order has been placed here to do this material by so and so.
Okay.
You see, I've been in the system for a long time, and I get intelligence reports every day about what is happening in Machakos.
It's happening in Nairobi. It's not being printed in Machakos.
No, it doesn't matter. Verifiable, and even national government, they give me, I get intelligence of verifiable intelligence that is going on. There is a difference between rumors and intelligence.
Okay.
If you're coming here and telling us that an intelligence officer told you, but it's a citizen, how credible is that citizen for you to come and make the same allegations? Have you verified? Have you done due diligence before remarking the way you remarked on national television?
All right.
That is being watched by all Kenyans?
I'm running out of time here, but we
It's
will allow
about
you to report this to the authorities and then let them follow up, and we will follow up with you as well once that is reported so that we know how far the authorities have gone with those claims that you've made. Senator Wamatangi, we're running out of time here, but I'd like to get closing remarks really quickly because we are out of time. You can choose to talk about any of these topics. I hope Dr. Tiende will speak about the CJ. It turns out that even the acting CJ didn't apply for the position, but that's for him. I'll start with you, Senator.
Trevor, it would have been very nice if we got adequate time to speak about, you know, the effect of the new education system on our children and so on, and the impact it will have, and what responsibility parents must have. I think it's a big issue because sometimes we get bogged down by so much politics.
Yes.
And I just want to confirm that personally I have not received any information that anyone is printing Jubilee t-shirts. The most irresponsible thing that Senator Linturi would do is to report what he said, because I believe that he would not be making those kind of remarks if they were not true, because if they were not true, then they would be very, very grave. Let me just say, to comment finally on that question that we spoke about security for members of parliament, that you know, I've never been beholden to that question of security myself, and so I live the way I used to live all the time. If you come to my house, you can come in any time. I mean, I don't have police officers with guns outside my house, and it's when you live above board and do the things you should, I think it's easy. The question is, do we focus on delivering service to our people? And I think that's what we would want to go. And allow me a moment of personal privilege, because that question has been there from many people on my phone. On how I intend to execute that new mandate that I got, you know, and I want to tell members of public and Kenyans that I intend to be a consensus builder. I intend to do the best that I can in that office to make sure that we have a better country, and that we minimize divisions in this country, and that you know, the House of Parliament can play the role it is supposed to play of delivering a better Kenya to our people, making sure that government delivers on by passing legislation that's good, and that will ensure that what we promise is what we do. And so I think that's going to be my main focus.
Consensus building.
And having all of us moving in the same direction. Making sure that responsibility is upheld where it has been made. And that's why I've spoken passionately about Jubilee and ensuring that we are going to deliver on our mission.
All right. Senator Mithika, very briefly, just
we find ourselves in the situation that we are in because, just like I said before, we've been very dishonest as leaders, and we want to make the public believe that whatever we do is for their best interests. And the state of the country is because of, as well, having a very moribund opposition, which should be putting government into check. And because they have abdicated that responsibility, then there is no money to raise those issues. Well, Tiendo Molo is so happy to be in government because they chairs a serious committee that doesn't belong to them, and because of any other leaders, and other than formalizing a coalition agreement to say that they want to be part of government, they also want their cake and eat it at the same time, and now they've left the Kenyans without any or anybody to raise the issues that really touch on them.
All right. Dr. Tiende, and considering this, the CJ slot is up next, 13 individuals have applied.
I'm not in government. I am an ODM MP, and under the Constitution, we are still the minority in the National Assembly. I'm the Vice Chair of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee because anyone is allowed to lead any of those committees except the oversight committees, which must be led by the minority. But if Linturi and these people think there's a big gap in the opposition, then we are doing quite well in trying to fill it, and we encourage you to continue. Secondly, about the CJ's position, I hope we talk about it next week, because there's a lot of things to talk about. But let me just say for now, it's a bit worrying that of almost 18,000 lawyers, only 13 can apply for the position of CJ, and of whom only 7 are credible. There's some worry there, but we will talk about it. Let me mention 2 quick things. One, a lot of people have decried the fact that there's no referendum law. I have always maintained that with or without referendum law, you can have a referendum, and we've had 2 without any referendum law. But just for the avoidance of doubt, is to let the country know that we have 2 drafts by JLAC and CIOC, both of which we have essentially harmonized. And just today, we are going to present the referendum bill for proper discussion. And the last thing is that I have received a lot of questions from a lot of counties to interpret to them what the orders that the High Court issued, the 5-judge bench issued last week, mean in terms of the BBI and referendum. Let me assure the counties and the entire country that the process of the BBI has not been stopped. And counties should go ahead and consider the bill and give their verdict to the joint speakers. All that the court did was to set a hearing date, which is 7th of March, 7th, 8th, and 9th of March, and to say the IBC cannot conduct a referendum until the case is heard. It was never contemplated that there could be a referendum before March anyway. The earliest we could have a referendum is in June. So everything BBI and the referendum is on course, even as the judicial process also takes its course. Because ultimately, the Constitution is made by the people of Kenya. It's an expression of the will of the people. No court will ever stop a people from expressing their will, either affirmatively or otherwise.
All right. Governor Mutu, I'd like you to help us interpret something here. There's a bit of a brawl between in Machakos right now. Let's play that clip. Maybe we lost it in interpretation or not. It's still about the by-election that we spoke about, and then you give your final remarks. Let's play that.
But in all things, I can see it in our next year. I mukona mudha mazembeta tuwe kidhui nikia Kalonzo na kwasa sawa. Nondo niwe sibala tuwe na tuende tabau ona akalalia tuwe lebaye ulumbo nanga mutungia kibeti chake ne mwe kibeti tiki ni senata. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Asanteni. Hebu tusalimiane tena.
Basically, I was there. I was seated watching this unfortunate drama unfold. It is a signal of poor leadership and that we have faced in our country. What Kalonzo Musyoka is saying is telling Mudhama that come next year or sometime, we'll see you trooping back to me, because it's they're working together and now they're falling apart. We'll see you trooping back to me and supporting me, because I think that's what's going to happen. And you don't have to worry, because I may have your wife now, but I'll return her to you. In other words, what is confirming is that he has taken Mudhama's wife away from him, and that the senatorial elections in Machakos and for Wiper to choose the lady who is Mudhama's ex-wife has nothing to do with senatorial issues, but is a personal fight between him and Mudhama, and he's making it personal. That was when Mudhama stood up, saying that is an insult. And most of us, and I've received very many phone calls from preachers, from other people, it is an insult to Mudhama, and it's an insult to men, especially in our region of Ukambani, to tell somebody, I've taken your wife, utadu, and don't worry, nikimalizana na yeye nitakurudishia. So basically that's what was going on. Something that is despicable.
It almost turned physical.
It almost turned physical, and I think I don't usually agree with Senator Mudhama. He's a bit erratic, you know, but this time I support him. He was insulted, and it was improper, and it was a mark of very low character for Kalonzo Musyoka to say what he said. And the meaning has really affected a lot of people.
Should he apologize?
It is something that is very serious. I can make my points now?
Yes.
I'd like to make very quick points. One of them is that our economy is not doing very well in this country, and we need to figure out what is wrong. And we have suffered. You look at where Kenya is today and where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, the style of leadership, the type of leaders that we employ, we vote for, on tribal lines or what they perpetuate, are they really the right leaders for our country? Are we ever going to catch up with Australia, with Hong Kong, with the UK, with South Africa and others? Maybe it's time for us to start thinking about what type of leader do we want in terms of development and economy. There was a young lady who talked about, the one I mentioned earlier on, that she has no employment and she's looking for money to start up a business. And she has no money because of the bureaucracy that we put in step. She doesn't have the 7,000. She was on ampasho.com video, and I want to say wherever she is, let her look for me, and I'm going to help her start her business as an example that we can support others that are down. Personally, I'll do that using my foundation. But she's only one person. What about the rest of us? A question you need to ask. And lastly is to say that as the BBI bill is going around, it should not just be a matter of just passing it. Why are the members of County Assembly holding public participation? It's so that wananchi can say whether what they like and what they don't like or what was left out. So there is an opportunity for members of County Assembly to listen to the voices on the ground and for them to give a memorandum of amendments that need to be done to the bill before it goes on a referendum. So this is a chance for us to come together, members of County Assembly, to collect those views so they can be put forward. Then because that's why they're holding the public participation.
All right, I have to leave it there. His Excellency Dr. Alfred Mutua, Governor Machakos, Honorable Mithika Linturi, Senator Meru, Honorable Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senate and Majority Chief Whip, and Honorable Dr. Tiende Amolo, Member of Parliament for Rarieda. Thank you so much for making time for State of the Nation. Again, we'll do this again next Thursday. We'll talk about a myriad of issues as well. There's some that we've left out, but we'll always keep them coming. And also, your views are valid at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, #Daybreak. Taking a quick break now. We'll be back with much more in just a bit. Bye for now.